every single day.
People want to connect with someone who... Self-expression is life. It is the challenge. It's a challenge of life.
You can't get mad at other people for not seeing your vision.
It was all about a grind. Like I said, I was selling CDs, DVDs, and clothes out the trunk of my
Whatever
car.
it takes.
Episode 33, the Hustle Chronicles podcast. I'm here, my very good friend, entrepreneur, Mr. Michael Nazzaro. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Let's just start off by explaining who you are, where you're from, and how you created CT City.
So, name is Mike Nazzaro. Everybody just calls me Coach Naz in the realm of my coaching. And, I'm from Trumbull, Connecticut. Obviously, Zach and I have been best friends since we were kids. And I don't know. I think I just always had a knack for coaching and teaching, and became a teacher as my career developed. Wanted to coach more, and got hired at Stanford High School as the head varsity boys lacrosse coach. I've been playing and coaching all my life, and once I got hired was 2011. I started CT City in 2012, shortly thereafter, and it was really just something that started as a small LLC for me to try to make some money on the side, and with that money be able to purchase and buy lacrosse sticks to give to kids in the community, to get them more involved in the sport, because traditionally the sport was a very affluent sport and required a lot of money, and it still is. So it really kind of started, I would guess, as like a fundraiser, really.
Sure.
And that's the basis of it.
And one of the, I feel like, most amazing parts of this journey, right, is your father basically started lacrosse in Trumbull, right? So it's almost like you're living the legacy for Stanford now, because when we started lacrosse, all the affluent towns around Connecticut, they were already deep into lacrosse. They were one of the originals of lacrosse in Connecticut. So we were really far behind. Yeah. And we got destroyed growing up, right? And then our senior year of high school, we
started competing a little bit, and I think that was the start of it for me. I mean, I feel like everybody has their niche, or so to speak, of what they like to do and what they want to do, and I feel that my strength was always being vocal and coaching and managing and stuff like that. So the teaching world was for me, and I liked being active and playing sports, and was fairly competitive, I guess, growing up. Any board game that I lost, I was upset about for a week. But my father started Trumbull Youth Lacrosse, and I had been playing sports all my life, and I had a lacrosse stick at my house, but we never had it in Trumbull where we were growing up, and it was always football and basketball and baseball and what have you, and we were okay at those sports. I feel like we were all involved in them together, and for some reason lacrosse developed into a sport that I fell in love with versus a sport that I played just to play and compete.
Yeah.
And from there, once I started getting recruited to play in college, and had some college options, going on to play college lacrosse and getting an education degree, and knowing I wanted to be a phys ed teacher and knowing I wanted to be a coach, I mean, that probably did kickstart from those young years when we first started, playing and finding a knack for the game that we all started to love, right? And
now fast forward now, you got a chip on your shoulder. Your team went, what did you finish the year at?
We were 12-4 this year.
Which is insane, right?
Yeah.
Have you ever had an over 500 record?
No.
And how many years has it been?
This is year 13.
So it's incredible to watch full circle. I know in our friend group, we were all live streaming and cheering on and getting excited when you were beating the mostly white towns in their own game, right? So I know a big part of growing up was your father owned his own tiling company. Mm-hmm. Entrepreneurship has always been a part of your life. You started to work at Stanford High School with the dream of creating your own private lacrosse clinic. Just walk us through what that journey was like for you, right?
Yeah, so it was difficult. I mean, in the coaching world and starting a business in the coaching world, especially in the lacrosse world, you dive into a ton of competitive individuals. I mean, And by competitive, it's not necessarily the type of competition that you're talking about winning and losing. You know, it's on the side of what people are really in for and what people want to do out of their business. And there are some very prominent lacrosse businesses around the area that do similar things as to what CT City Lacrosse does, but our approach is different from any of them in the sense that when this was all started, there's 3 types of lacrosse. There's your in-season lacrosse, which is Stanford High School, where I currently coach, or wherever else somebody else coaches. That's your high school season, like we used to play in the spring.
Sure.
Then there's your quote-unquote club programs.
Right.
Your club programs are programs that are summer and fall, and those you pay to play, and you travel around the country, and you go play in front of college coaches, and that's kind of the landscape that all sports go to now, is like this pay-to-play concept, where yeah, you're playing for your high school, or yeah, you're playing for your town, but supplementary to that, you're playing for these club teams. And unfortunately, some of those club teams are watered down because you can go start a club lacrosse team tomorrow and go recruit some athletes and get them involved.
Right.
With CT City, I do not do any of those club type of scenes. I focus solely on skill development, player IQ, game, in-game scenarios, because being at Stanford, we're picking up kids at the high school that are freshmen who have never picked up a stick before. Yeah. And we're taking them literally off the streets and donating lacrosse equipment to them and getting sticks in their hands. And so my focus as a coach has always been player development. And that's where the CT City stuff came in, where we don't really house these big club programs and these big club teams. We have 1 or 2 travel teams that we keep for people who don't want to pay that premium and be a part of those clubs. But everything that we do is just all skills, IQ, high repetition, and in-game type of scenarios. And that's kind of our market, where we hire coaches who want to develop players, not who want to go to a tournament in Maryland every week in the summer and say they won a trophy, in a pay-to-play thing. Not that that's a bad way to look at playing and competing. But, I don't like to get into that market, and I don't like to get into that type of coaching, because you kind of lose sight of what coaching is all about. And coaching is all about the kids and making them enjoy what they're doing.
Yeah, so clearly there's not a lot of people who own a lacrosse clinic that think like you, right? And that's why you've been successful, is because you do focus on the kids.
Yeah, I think having a kids first approach is one of the most important things to look at when you coach, right? And we're not this huge scaled business that, has dozens of employees and is nationwide like some of these other club programs are. But I think the bigger you get in the coaching world, sometimes the harder it is to focus on the player first mentality, right? Because then you start focusing on your metrics, and you start focusing on how much money you're making, and you focus on how you can profit and how you can scale and all that. Whereas us and our staff and the people who I'm around are all people that I either have been friends with, or who I trust, or who I've played with or coached with or met along the way, and are people who I feel put that same type of mentality onto our players, where like, listen, we care about developing you as a player and a person, not as a overall championship lacrosse player. Like, we're going to develop you on and off the field. That's our goal.
You're not just focusing on making them money. You're focusing on building character in these young individuals, which is very admirable, right?
For sure.
Now, I know there's been a ton of success stories. I know you do a lot of different fundraising for the kids. Walk us through what that's been like to take a kid off the street in Stanford and then watch them get into college.
It's a roller coaster.
Yeah.
It's a roller coaster. We have a lot of kids who love the game, fall in love with the game, and have had great success, coming from, an area of the city that's lower in the socioeconomic ladder, and, comes from maybe state housing or government housing, or, not knowing if they're going to get a ride to school, or should they have to walk to school, or so on and so forth. And the hardest part, I think, is the learning curve for a lot of these individuals. Yeah. You grow up in an area of a hotbed of lacrosse, but in the city of Stanford, it's not necessarily a hotbed yet. I mean, there's a lot of kids that are playing, but the accessibility of getting yourself a basketball or a football or a soccer ball is so much of a norm, and so I guess inexpensive, so to speak, right? Yeah. I mean, you're going to pick up a basketball, you could go get one. You could probably find a basketball at a park locally that somebody left there on a weekend. Whereas a lacrosse stick, you're still looking at a minimum of $150 to $200 investment just to get the stick, let alone the pads, the equipment. So the journey of doing that has been a roller coaster, because you have to realize as a coach that you spend so much time, effort, and energy in your own personal time and energy that a lot of kids will break your heart. You know, I mean, they'll fall off the wagon, or they won't show up to things they're supposed to show up to, or they'll fail out of school, or they'll get in trouble, or they'll go down a different path. And that's part of coaching, is just understanding that, you know, you're going to make a difference, but you're not going to be able to make change in everybody unless they want that change to happen. And if those kids can see that opportunity through the game of lacrosse, that's my whole goal, is to let them know that there is opportunity out there. You just got to put the time and effort in.
And I think you could really feel it with your content, right? Like when you're talking to the camera, it's like you could feel you talking to the students, whether they're the students on your high school lacrosse team or in your clinic. You can feel that you're not just trying to express to them that they need to want it, right? You could want it all you want, but I feel like it comes across so genuine in the videos, in the content you make, because that is who you are. And that's the skills that you've been brought up with. And now you're, passing on to the next generation.
Yeah, I think it comes down to, the same stuff you're doing, right? Like even with podcast episodes and caring and giving exposure to other businesses and things like that. I mean, that's kind of where you've gotten to since always, we always talked about the growth being things that you care about. Sure. And if you don't care about what you're doing, people are going to know that right away. Right. I mean, they can see right through it, right? Like your goal in building a brand of Junk Luggers, or building your franchise and building Junk Luggers NYC, like that wasn't just because you wanted to make money and say you drive trucks around and clean up people's houses. It was like you made a difference by donating things and being a part of the community and making sure people understood that, like, not only are you a junk removal service that people have to pay for, but, you're a service that's going to provide good for other people and the overall environment and community and so on and so forth. And I think that's what we try to put off to our players, that like we're telling them like, hey, listen, this game of lacrosse changed our lives in one way or another. Might not have made us rich, might not have made us, famous, but it changed our lives to make us love something, to be able to care about it enough to pass it on to another generation of players.
I love it. Yeah, it's so true. One thing that I know you're very, it's very special to you, is just the branding behind you. Why is that so important to you for someone that might not have the same eye that you have? What would you recommend for them? Because you're right, there's just like Junk Luggers, just like lacrosse clinics, like there are many options, but clearly your brand sticks out much more than others.
I think that part of the piece is just believing in what you're doing. Mm-hmm. Like the branding and the things that people want from your company are different from every client's perspective. There are some people who want their kid to be this all-American Division I top-notch athlete. And then there are parents who just want their kids to go and be active and enjoy what they're doing. And those polar opposites, I think, attract when you're brought into an organization who cares about the kid who's there for recreationally just as much as the kid who wants to be competitive. I love it. And I think the branding piece is just like, CT City Lacrosse. I don't even know why. I don't even have a reason of why I named it CT City Lacrosse. It was because I was hired in Connecticut and in a city and wanted to brand it with lacrosse. And the idea was to encompass and make a cost-effective program for any kids to be a part of. It could be a kid who is, new to the game. It could be a kid who is experienced, and then we will hire staff based on the needs of those players. So we'll have myself coaching the very experienced kids because maybe there's some next level coaching that I could provide. Yep. And then I might hire somebody who is, a younger coach, maybe a college kid or somebody like that, who can teach kind of the novice players, while still encompassing the whole brand of CT City, being that we're still giving back, we're still providing a service, and we're still making your kid a better player while also teaching them things that could be lessons in life, on and off the field.
I love it. And I think, when you think about who is your ideal customer, right? A lot of times you're actually speaking to the parent, which is pretty rare in terms of the people that have come in onto the podcast. Usually you're going directly to the customer.
Right.
Yours, you really need to sell the parent, but then also the kid has to believe in you.
Yeah.
So when you think about that, like what would it look like if you're trying to pick out an ideal customer, an ideal parent, and an ideal student athlete?
I mean, first off, they have to understand that sports need to be fun, and that kids need to enjoy and have their time on the field be something that they want to go to. I mean, you being a new dad are starting to see that now your kids are going to start doing stuff like you're going to want to see them going to things they want to go to. You're not going to go sign them up for something that like they absolutely hate. You know, like you're going to put your kid into karate and then they just can't chop the block of wood and they hate it and they don't want to do it, right? So I think like the fun atmosphere is definitely an important piece. You know, making sure that parents are also instilling that in their kids, so when they're showing up, they understand what those things look like.
Yeah.
You know, I don't need a parent or a player for that matter who is going to show up and think that because they do one of our clinics, their kid's going to be, you know, an amazing All-American athlete, right? Yeah. If they stick with us, they're going to gain valuable gameplay type of things, and they're going to become a better player. But it's the intrinsic motivation that's going to cause that kid to be a good player, not just what we provide for them. So our ideal clients are people that understand the landscape, that the more things you immerse yourself into, you can go and do another clinic with another company and we're not going to be upset about that. But like, do it with us because that's going to be where they're going to enjoy it and, you know, remember it the most. And hopefully that's a notable experience for them. And when they come back, it's then becomes just a trickle down word of mouth. Like, oh yeah, have you checked this program out? Or, oh yeah, have you heard of this? And I feel like that's how you grew your stuff too.
Absolutely.
Once one person says, oh yeah, junk luggers came to my house and, oh yeah, those green trucks. Yeah, cool. Yeah. You know, and then it's like just kind of domino effect of, or I guess snowball effect is a better word, right? You're growing, not knocking down.
Yep. So I know your wife was a big lacrosse player. She is very active in the business. When I talk about the family dynamics, what it means to you guys, to you, to Amy, to Collins in the future, I know your dog comes to a lot of the clinics. What do you think that's added onto your family relationship dynamics?
Stress. No, I think that the family relationship dynamics is good. I mean, my wife Amy, she played at UConn. We always joke around saying she played D1, I played D3. Yeah. You know, it's a little competition there, but I think she at times, you know, is as competitive as I am. And she brings an element of caring about teaching the girls too, because she's a passionate person, just in life. Like she's just a very nice, outgoing, like wannabe friendly person. She's thoughtful. You know, she cares more about me being more thoughtful than she does her own self, right? Because she already has that piece. So she brings an element to the business of a quality coach who I can really count on to, I know that like she's my partner and I know that she's going to bring that same sort of energy to every clinic that we have, you know?
Absolutely.
And she's a part of it. She's been a little less of a part of it now since we had a kid, but over the years, I mean, she's grown it with me and it's been really awesome.
How do you think being a teacher, being a coach, owning your own business, how has that played a part in you being your next chapter of being a father?
I mean, that's a good question. I think there's nothing that can prepare you, I think, for being a dad. I mean, for sure. You know, I lose sleep over kids that we coach because I know how good they can be, or maybe there's an injury along the lines, or maybe there's a kid who's struggling with grades, or a kid who doesn't know what college he's going to commit to, and I'm there to help him. But at the end of that road, whether it's triumph or heartbreak or success, it's like I love those kids like they are my own. Yeah. But they aren't my own. Yeah. So there's a level of detachment from it. Yeah. Whereas then I'm at home and I'm now away coaching other people's kids, you know, that's where that whole fun and loving engagement comes in, because I'm not going to be, or I don't want to be spending time away from my family coaching other people's kids who don't even care to be there and don't even respect the fact that we're doing that. And it's like, that's where I start to, and am starting to, because I'm only a year into this fatherhood thing where I'm starting to realize that time is valuable.
Oh yeah.
And I want to train more staff to be at more of my stuff so I can be at home a little bit more.
Right.
And focus on the things that I need to be at, like a lot of the advanced stuff and
Right.
the next level stuff where I know I can provide more value to a kid who is looking to get that next level of coaching because I have the experience in the company.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost leveled up your business by having this mindset because you've learned how to delegate, you've learned how to build stronger leaders, and your time needs to go in the most high valued activities of raising the next generation of lacrosse superstars and players because of the fact that your time is the most valuable thing and you're never going to be able to gain back that time with your daughter, right?
Right.
So it's pretty incredible how much you've learned about delegation and, you know, valuing your time with your business just in the last year.
For sure.
What what does the future bring for CT?
I think continuing to grow and expand where I can. I mean, I just added some new field space, you know, a couple hours during the week at a new spot in Stamford, Connecticut. You know, I think when I first started CT City, it was relied heavily on getting players involved from Stamford High School and from West Hill High School. And those are the two high schools in the city of Stamford. That was the main focus, was like, okay, how can I make this game accessible to these kids who otherwise don't have the opportunity to do so?
Yeah.
So whereas one program might be $800 for a kid to do in the summer, my program is $400, right?
Wow.
And there's financial aid and there's discounts, and you know, you might call me a bottom feeder or whatever you want to call it, but you know, we're providing opportunity for kids that wouldn't have it. So going from where we started to where I want to go, I'm just trying to still stay somewhat cost effective. I don't want to price anybody out of any of our programs, but I want to offer a little bit more in the way of coaching kids that want to be coached, right? It's great to have the introductory programs. It's great to have the kindergarten and the little Laxers in the first grade, second grade, third grade. But now I'm starting to realize that I've done that for 15, 20 years now. Now I want to start coaching a handful of the athletes that are going to do small group stuff or private group stuff that really want to take that next step. And I can provide that value to them while all the staff that I've had trained underneath me and that I've coached with and alongside, they can run those other programs knowing that they're still putting out the same stuff that I want them to be doing, but I don't necessarily have to be present at all of it.
I love it. Yeah. So if you were in a private clinic, right, for any parent that's watching this and they're thinking, oh, maybe this could be good for my son, now he could take a couple hours a week and really hone into his skills. What would that opportunity be like to the parents? How would they reach out to you? Where would they, how would you run a private clinic for them?
So, I mean, through our website, everything eventually comes across our desk or one of our coaches' desks. Basically going on our website, which is ctcitylax.com, any of our socials at ctcitylax. Basically it just looks like sending us a message and or booking online. You can book direct through us, brings us to our available calendar. We have in the summer and the late spring when field space is abundant, we're able to get out on fields. But in the fall and the winter, when field space is not abundant, we have indoor options that kids can come to, and we also have in-home services where we'll actually send coaches to you to be able to set up shop in a yard that's a decent enough size, and work on some skill-based things at your own house.
Oh, that's awesome. So do you need like a net or anything like that?
I bring a pop-up goal if needed. A lot of the clients and people already have setups. Think about like our yards growing up. Like, my house, we had the backyard goal, right? Yeah. So that's kind of the way it is. And most kids that are playing lacrosse, right, and most kids that are playing sports, I mean, you got a little Tykes basketball hoop in your house, or you got a a lacrosse goal in your backyard, or you got a little pop-up soccer goal. Whatever we can make do with, we just vet our clients prior to and ask them what they have, so that we know what we're bringing. And we could bring everything from a goal and balls and a full setup to just a bucket of balls and some cones, and use what some people have, because some houses have better setups than we could provide, because they got big yards. So
I'm thinking about our first day of playing lacrosse with your dad. Do you remember it?
in the parking lot.
In the
Everybody
parking
remembers
lot.
that.
We had cleats on. Your dad was trying to figure out how to make it happen. 'Cause
Yep.
we had to play on concrete.
Yeah.
And
So
I remember going up against the wall, right? With cleats on and watching all, like we were young, we were 11, 12 years
Yeah,
old.
7th grade, I think.
And just kids were eating shit. Like they just kept slipping out because they were wearing cleats.
I think we threw a ball through the window. Of,
For sure.
Of
First day.
Madison Middle School.
Yep.
What happened with that was, and this is a Donnie story, but what happened with that was when he first wanted to start this and he got these guys involved, he was like telling me like, get all your friends to come play lacrosse. I'm like, okay, cool. So all of a sudden it was me, you, and Kirk and Lon, everybody out there, right?
Yep.
So he had set up the fact that we were doing a lacrosse program. They had said that the fields were going to be available. Whatever. As that happened, they then rescinded that field availability. The town of Trumbull rescinded the field availability. So he was like, well, we have 25 kids here. They all have lacrosse equipment. Well, what are we going to do? So we went to the side parking lot, and that's where it started. And it's funny because Trumbull lacrosse is notable now, and they're competitive in the FCAC. And before then, it was a new program, and we were all part of that startup. But everybody remembers that story because that's like, I don't want to say the hardship, but that's like the hardship story, right? And like that stuck out in your mind because that was the starting point of lacrosse in that town. And whether or not he gets credit from that, he doesn't really care. But you remember that, and I remember that, and all the other guys remember that. And
yeah, we left that and I remember one of the last things he said is, next time bring sneakers in addition to cleats, just in case. And obviously he figured it out within a week. It's not like we continued doing that, but that's the exciting part, right? Like that's the things that really are memorable to kids is getting through the adversity.
For sure.
Right. And that's what I feel like is very admirable about what you do is you'll take kids that have a bright future. They could go D1. Their parents are giving them everything they want, right? They've got their diet dialed down. They've got their exercise down. They're killing it in school. And then the exact opposite is you've got an inner city kid, doesn't even have money for equipment. Don't worry about it. We'll give you something.
Right.
Might not even be able to make it through a whole season. Don't worry about that. I will take that kid in and teach him how to, what the importance of a relationship with your teacher is.
For sure.
Right. So it's pretty amazing to see what the next generation obstacle of adversity is because you're just in this melting pot, right?
Yeah.
Like all of your friends live in Fairfield County. We all come from affluent areas. We all have these successful careers, but you're also still, working at Stanford High School, which is some of the, the lowest income individuals of Connecticut.
And there's a lot of players that come out and everybody talks about it like, oh, lacrosse, it's a white kid sport, and that is true to a point, right? I mean, there's the accessibility and things along that nature just make it difficult for families from different backgrounds to even dial in or think about, well, I'm not going to spend all this money on my kid to have them go and try a sport, right?
Yeah.
So what I still do with CT City is regardless of what we're making and what we're able to pay our coaches and what our programs cost, there's almost like a no questions asked type of thing where if people email us and ask us and say, hey, we can't afford a stick or do you have something we can borrow? Like the answer is always yes. I mean, I have an equipment locker that I keep basically, a storage bin full of donated equipment, and we do equipment drives every year. And, and we get sticks in kids' hands. And I mean, in my garage, I have 4 garbage barrels of just straight up lacrosse sticks.
Yeah.
So it's always a no questions asked type of thing. And we have to charge a premium for our programs because we have overhead, right? I mean, we have field space costs, we have coaching costs, we have marketing costs, we have all that stuff. But if somebody needs to get started, we do free programs all the time and stick drives and all that stuff. So that's really our end goal is to keep growing the game as much as we can and just really getting kids involved and showing them that this sport is non-discriminant across the board. And if anything, if you're a good athlete who plays basketball and plays football and plays soccer and you want to try lacrosse, you've already learned all of the aspects of all those sports. You just need to learn how to catch and throw, and then you're going to dominate, which we've seen because these kids.
For sure. I was just about to say, like, I remember, growing up and these kids being like, I don't know how to play lacrosse, but like you put the ball in their stick and they run full
gone.
speed,
Yeah.
and you're like, okay, we could teach you the rest. That is the most important part.
And that's how it started with us too.
Yeah.
Right? Like we all grew up. I mean, we played baseball together. We played basketball together. We were always shooting hoops at your house or whatever. And like those skill components, or I guess you would say those
soft skill
components, you know, turn into kind of a muscle memory where you remember how to cross somebody up or whatever. You just have to do it with a stick and a ball.
Yep.
You know, so the more we can sell that to kids, the more they can gain traction with the game. And my biggest obstacle and barrier has been trying to grow the game to a diverse group of individuals in the city that are 6th grade and below, right? Like I'm in the high
Get 'em
school,
when they're young.
so I teach in the high school, so I can go to freshman football, or I can go to freshman basketball or freshman soccer and say, hey guys, why don't you come out in the spring and come try lacrosse? And everybody's usually willing to do it because they've heard a lot of good things.
Sure.
The hardest thing is to get buy-in from the communities and get the communities to realize that, you know,
There's a future.
There's a future, and it shouldn't discriminate what color you are, what financial background you come from. Like everybody should be able to play the game, and have an opportunity to do so. And that's like, you know, that's the impact that I think we have as a business, where we're not a non-for-profit. We probably could be a non-for-profit, but that structure hasn't been put into place because, you know, we're still doing as much as we can to give back.
For sure. This idea of non-for-profit I feel like is a dead, extinct dinosaur by this point. Like you need to make money to continue to grow the game. And I would much rather see businesses have a for purpose than consider themselves a non-for-profit where they have all these obstacles that they're going to have to overcome just to get that tax benefit.
Yeah.
So,
and non-for-profits aren't non-for-profits. We're making money. Just a statement of non-for-profit is
for
what
sure.
it is.
What are you like looking forward to for the future?
Definitely my family.
Yep.
I want to see how that dynamic continues to grow, but I'm really looking forward to I didn't expect anything to come really of CD City. I thought I was going to be doing like a summer camp and a couple private lessons and whatever. I didn't know I was going to have staff. I didn't know I was going to have coaches that I was going to have to like pay and keep track of. I mean, yeah, sure, call me an entrepreneur, but like I'm still a teacher who has a side hustle that I try to, you know, make ends meet with, right? And make up for lost income when I'm not teaching in the summer, right?
Yep.
And that was the original piece of how do I get sticks in kids' hands? And then also, how do I survive living in a city that I teach in? That's a really expensive city to live in,
right?
On a teacher's salary. So that's where it all stemmed from. And then now just growing into, you know, how can I continue to get more staff, get more programming, and really make everything widespread, where lacrosse is something where it's like, oh yeah, you haven't signed up for lacrosse yet? Like, oh yeah, you haven't done this lacrosse yet? Like, I want it to be something in the city of Stamford where, and wherever, Norwalk, Stamford, where people are showing up or moving to the city and be like, oh yeah, you have to try out lacrosse. You have to try out lacrosse.
Yeah, makes total sense. If you could have a billboard anywhere in the city or anywhere in the world, let me say, where would it be and what would it say?
Billboard. It's a good question. I think it'd be a self-reflective billboard. It'd be something along the lines of like, you know, I don't know, what have you done for someone else? Or what have you done for someone else today? Or something like that. I don't know. As a teacher and a coach, I feel like we preach a lot of selflessness and a lot of putting the person to the left and the right before yourself. And I think it'd be something, I can't think of a tagline, but something self-reflective that gets you, like, you know, you're just driving and vibing, listening to music, and all of a sudden you see a statement and you're like, yeah, I guess let me call my friend who I haven't talked to in a while, or something like that, right? But yeah, something self-reflective that kind of makes you think, you know.
I love it. You have any questions for me?
Yeah, what's your goal with the Hustle Chronicles podcast for?
It's a good question. I mean, we took a long hiatus.
Yeah.
Partly because another surgery, another recovery, another kid.
Killing it though.
Yeah. Another Roger's become our biggest salesperson. So Lon doesn't love the fact that Roger is focusing on a side hustle.
Right.
Yeah, I think the future of the Hustle Chronicles podcast, we were just talking about building out a podcast studio.
Yeah.
So you don't hear kids screaming in the background. We don't have to
It's authentic, though.
figure out where the lighting is the best. And creating more of an environment where people are excited, just like you're talking about. We don't want it to be work, right?
Right.
Every entrepreneur has too much on their plate already. So creating an environment where we can get the smartest, most knowledgeable individuals to want to come over, have fun, shoot a podcast, and then go back on with their day. And being able, I think if that authenticity comes out like it did today, then the content will be even greater, and the people watching it will be able to feel like this guy had a good time. It just wasn't a commitment that he made to do, to create more content for his business.
Right. Yeah, that's good. I like that. I think part of this should also go to keep diversifying the people you're bringing in. Like,
Oh, for sure.
I'm clearly not, whatever you want to call me, an entrepreneur or whatever.
You're an entrepreneur. I don't know why you was
I don't know what
You are
an entrepreneur. I appreciate that, but at the same time, I'm, a person with a unique type of business model where, like, I never even thought of a business model going into it, and I think that's organic reach, where a lot of people like you had. I mean, you had no idea, and you and Josh and whatever. Like, I don't know. I don't think that the scope of what you helped create was any bit there when you were some college kids hustling for some money.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden you're like, oh yeah, we need a little warehouse space. It's like, oh yeah, we need a couple more trucks. And it's like, so I think this is a good grassroots movement to keep diversifying, who you're bringing in and what you're bringing in, and having people talk. It's
100%.
good.
I think we've really changed who an ideal guest is, right? And part of that's just been, we had some time off to think about, what episodes were exciting and we got really good feedback, and which episodes, like, we could have done without. So for me, yes, the idea of who the entrepreneur is really has changed over the last 10 months. But like, you've always had this weird identity crisis where you don't think of yourself as an entrepreneur, but like every time we get together, you're talking about how you can pivot, new opportunities that came to your plate, what you can do to reach out to more customers and clients. And I think, the private clinics, the more success stories you have from that, the better your content has become. You've organically grown to this level that truthfully is most people's full hustle, right? It's not their side hustle. You're just everything you do has an intention behind it.
Yeah.
And because of that, you can't do anything half-ass. Like, I knew CT City would turn into one of the most prestigious clinics in Connecticut, because you can't, like, I think about playing video games. You're like, oh, come over and play Halo. I'm coming over thinking I'm playing Halo. You're coming over to absolutely destroy me and not even let me shoot off my gun.
Yeah.
So I think, that translates into your business. That translates, like, just the way that you're recruiting now. You're so ahead of other coaches, clinics, businesses in just like your business acumen. So I think the future is bright for you. And I think ultimately it could be whatever you want it to be.
Yeah.
Right. So
I appreciate that.
That part, I've always learned so much from you just on how I coach my employees, my coworkers, because you're just a natural leader, and, people are going to see that when they watch this episode, and I'm sure we'll get feedback about how genuine of a coach you really are. One thing that I want to make sure that we just touch on is equipment. It sounds like you're always in the need for equipment. Anyone that's watching this, is there anything that you don't want? Boys, girls, equipment?
Garbage.
Yeah.
I don't want garbage. If there's usable, reasonable equipment that you think someone can make use of, and if you're a lacrosse player, you know what that is, right?
Yep.
Think about it this way, like, would you put it on your kid, or would you put it on yourself to, like, go out and try to play some lacrosse?
Sure.
And if that is the case and you're trying to clear out your garage, call junk luggers and have junk luggers call us, or call us directly. When people reach out via email is the best way to do that. And I just give them my home address to come drop stuff off.
Awesome.
Obviously I won't put that out there now, but if people are looking to drop off, we'll do donations through the school. We'll do donations at my own house.
Shoot us a DM.
Yeah.
You could drop it off here. We'll figure out a way. especially if, we could figure out a way through Drunk Luggers
For sure.
when we're getting stuff.
Yeah, I mean,
because-
Remix too, like they're right in Stanford. I mean,
Yeah.
if anyone at Remix is, I'll talk to some of the people that I know there, but
Yeah.
if there's anyone at Remix and they come across lacrosse equipment, they can donate it right to us, and it's going to a good cause,
What's the best way that someone could reach out to you? What's the best way if someone's interested in signing up for your programs?
Probably socials, man. I mean, you know how it is.
Yep.
Like CT City Lax, I think it has somewhat of a ring to it. It's been around, so if you just remember CT City Lax, you typed it in on Google, go on Instagram, wherever
They've got
you're
great
at.
content.
Yeah, just DM us, send us a message. We're always responsive. Everything comes across my desk at some point, or my phone for that matter, or whatever. So, yeah.
It's awesome. That wraps up episode 33 of the Hustle Chronicles podcast. Coach Naz over here, thank you so much. And we love you so much.
Yes, sir. Love you too. Thank you.
Peace.